Have you noticed how everyone has a take on literally everything these days? Politics, parenting, every single thing anyone posts online. But what if I told you, you don't actually have to care? Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Rachel. Okay, so we're going to talk about something that, again today, that's going to stir the pot a little, or ironically, maybe actually calm a few minds. You don't have to have an opinion on everything. I know, wild, right? In a world that practically demands that we have a hot take, a position, a like, a protest, a retweet, or at least a raised eyebrow on damn near everything, sometimes the most peaceful, powerful thing we can do is say, that is not mine to carry. Or maybe just, I don't care. Now listen, I am not saying don't care about anything. If something affects your life, your rights, your body, your family, your safety, of course you should have an opinion, a well-informed one. Speak up, get involved. But if it doesn't, if it is just poking your sensibilities, maybe, just maybe, you don't need to offer your 2 cents. We all know someone who has an opinion on everything, and I mean everything. Their neighbor's landscaping, the parenting choices of people they've never met, the sexuality of a coworker's nephew's dog groomer. Why are we this way? Why do we care? It's exhausting, and it's not remotely helpful. My dad, who was honestly a pretty opinionated guy, used to say, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got them. There was more to that quote, but let's just say I'm keeping the gross part to myself. Still, it makes you think, right? The older he got, or maybe it was the older I got, the more I realized just how many opinions he actually had. And I am not going to lie and say he didn't express a few he probably shouldn't have. He did. But the quote, it still works for me. Because even with all his opinion, there was a time he understood that not every thought needed to be aired in public. That is the part that stuck with me. Now, here's a question. Is having no opinion actually an opinion? Maybe, but it's also a boundary, a line in the sand that says, not my business, not my circus, not my monkeys, and that's okay. All right, still with me? Good. Let's go a little deeper. Let's talk about judgment for a second, because a lot of the time, what we call opinions are just judgments in disguise. Judgments about how people live, who they love, how they dress, what they believe. Ask yourself, does this really affect me, or is it just offending some outdated sense of how I think the world should look? And if it's just your sensibilities that are ruffled, that is on you. Being offended is a choice. And if you're offended by someone else's mere existence, that is not morality. That's fear disguised as moral superiority. Now, some people are going to say, well, we need to save their soul. It's wrong. It goes against the Bible. Okay, let's go there. Matthew 7:1. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. John 8:7. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. People love quoting the Bible when it suits them, but they forget the parts about compassion, humility, and minding your own spiritual business. And listen, I am not a theologian or a biblical scholar. I don't even believe in organized religion. But I went to Catholic schools for 13 years. We read the Bible. We had it quoted at us daily. I lost count of how many times I had to go to Mass. So I am not pulling this stuff out of thin air. And if we're going for literal interpretations, let's be consistent. The 10 Commandments forbids adultery. Thou shalt not commit adultery. But how many people have cheated on their spouse, or divorced and remarried while their ex is still alive? Because according to the most literal interpretations of Scripture, that's a no-go. And yet, we don't seem to picket weddings holding signs that say second marriage equals sin. We don't harass people in line at the clerk's office because they're on marriage license number 3, or hold it against our elected officials. Why? Because it's personal. Because it hits too close to home. And when judgment points back at us, we suddenly discover compassion. Look, we have all judged and made assumptions. We're human, and we'll likely all do it again. But the point is to catch ourselves, to do a little better next time. The Bible actually calls it out pretty directly. Matthew 7, verses 3 through 5 says, "Why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but fail to notice the plank in your own eye? How can you say, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when all the time there is a plank in your own? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you'll see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye." It's not subtle. The message is, stop being so focused on everyone else's flaws while ignoring your own. Am I cherry picking here? Absolutely, because that's what everyone else seems to be doing. So I'm making a point. Let's at least be honest about it. And according to the Bible, if you're taking it literally, Adam and Eve populated the earth. Then Noah and his family did it again after the flood. So technically, yeah, the whole earth was repopulated by close relatives, which gets a hard no in later chapters. So do tattoos, shellfish, and mixed fabrics. Are you going to give up shrimp and polyblend t-shirts? Didn't think so. Even Pope Francis said, "Who am I to judge?" If someone else's lifestyle is somehow abhorrent to God, which frankly I doubt is the case for most of the people getting judged by self-appointed moral experts, then guess what? That is between them and their God, not you, not me, not any of us. And for those who like to quote scripture to justify judgment, I would suggest reading the whole book, not just the convenient sound bites. Luke 6, verse 37, "Do not judge and you will not be judged. Do not condemn and you will not be condemned. Forgive and you will be forgiven." James 4, verses 11 through 12, "There is only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and destroy. But you, who are you to judge your neighbor?" Romans chapter 2, verses 1 through 3 basically says, if you pass judgment on others, you're condemning yourself because you do the same things. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 15, "You shall not do injustice in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 15, "You shall not do injustice in judgment. You shall not be partial to the poor, nor show preference for the great, but judge your neighbor fairly." Here's a thought. Maybe read those verses again before forming your next opinion about someone else's life. And speaking of judgment, let's talk about race and immigration for a second. Why do we need to have opinions about someone based on the color of their skin? We are all the same on the inside, every single one of us. And why do we throw around the word criminal when we're talking about undocumented immigrants? Simply being undocumented isn't a criminal offense in most cases. It is a civil one. People love saying, "They're taking our jobs." Really? Because the last time I checked, there are not many folks lining up to pick produce in a 100-degree heat or work in slaughterhouses or meatpacking industry for low wages. Yesterday morning, I was out on a bike ride. It was 7 a.m., already close to 90 degrees and humid as hell. I passed a roofing crew, already hard at work. The majority were minorities, and they were working their asses off. And I thought, what exactly is wrong with that? Why are we judging people who are doing difficult, honest work, many of whom are paying taxes and contributing to systems they may never benefit from? It's not just unfair, it's inhumane. We need to ask ourselves, why are we so quick to have an opinion about people we don't know based on things that don't affect us? And here's another thought. Maybe the reason we're all so stressed and cranky is because we have too many opinions. We're constantly analyzing, judging, reacting, every headline, every tweet, every bumper sticker. We have created a mental traffic jam. There's just no room left for peace. Did it ever occur to us that inner calm doesn't come from controlling the world or other people, but from letting go of the need to control? The Stoics, people who really knew how to keep their cool, had a few things to say about opinions. Marcus Aurelius said, "You always own the option of having no opinion." And Epictetus reminded us, it's not things that upset us, but our opinions about them. In other words, what's really stirring up all that anxiety, rage, or indignation? Probably not the thing itself, but the story we're telling ourselves about it. Now, here's where we tie it all in. In today's world, we're living in an age of outrage. Everyone's yelling, everyone's offended, everyone has a take, and the algorithm loves it. People in power love it, but that doesn't mean you have to feed it. When you choose not to jump into every debate, not to weigh in on every trending headline, or judge someone you've never even met, you're not being passive, you're being wise. You're protecting your energy. You're making space for things that actually affect your life. I mean, does it really change your life if your best friend's hairstylist happens to do drag on the weekends? Or if some person 3 towns over, whom you have never met, decides they feel more like a girl than a boy? What exactly is the harm in that if it makes them happy? And how does it affect you? Other people's identities are not threats to your own, but we have been conditioned to think everything that's different must be wrong, or that it's your job to have an opinion about it. It's not. There is power in silence. There's strength in restraint, and there is wisdom in realizing not everything needs your opinion. So maybe today, just for a minute, take a breath and let something pass without reaction. Let someone else live their life without needing to weigh in. Let your mind rest, because peace isn't just the absence of conflict, it's the absence of unnecessary commentary. I already said it earlier, but it's worth repeating. It's usually not the thing itself that stirs us up, it's our opinion about it. Epictetus put it plainly. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. And that includes being provoked by someone else's life choices or their mere existence. If it doesn't affect you directly, maybe let it go. And yes, I realize the irony here. I am sharing my opinion about not needing to have opinions. Guilty as charged. But maybe the difference is I'm not trying to force you to agree with me. I am just asking you to think about it. To ask yourself, does this really affect me? Does this deserve my energy? Let me end with this. At the risk of pissing off a few more people, which, let's be honest, I seem to have a talent for, maybe we should focus on being good humans before we worry about being good Christians. One tends to cover the other, but it doesn't always go both ways. All right, if this video made you think, even if you don't agree with me, feel free to give it a like or share it with someone who's maybe a little too opinionated. You know who they are. Or let me know if you think I'm totally off base. If this kind of hopefully thoughtful, slightly irreverent reflection is your thing, go ahead and subscribe. I try to post stuff like this regularly. Calm, curious, occasionally a little snarky. Thanks for watching. As always, take care of you, and I will see you the next time. Bye-bye.